Okay, so let's start our topic 4. Last time, what we discussed is a consumer preference theory and consumer behavior if the things are changing, like the price of the goods and as well as the income. Now we narrow down our discussion on the same topic, and we want to drive individual and market demand curves. If the price of the goods change, how the consumers behave, and if the price of a related goods change, how the consumers change the bundle of goods what he selected. And income change. So we will see these changes and try to drive the demand curve with the help of these ideas. So let's start with our discussion of individuals and market demand. So in this particular chapter, we're going to talk about 6 different headings and or 6 different bullet points, but in each part I'm going to cover the 2 points, and then in the 4th part we cover the appendix of this chapter, in which we will talk about how to maximize the utility with the help of Lagrangian function. So let's start with the first one, driving of the demand curve. Now, how we drive the demand curve if the price of a goods change. So we up till chapter number 3, we discussed that the consumer select a bundle of goods or out of 2 goods where the budget constraint and his or her preference meet together. And so for that reason, we can see that driving of the demand curve, and also we have to look at the effects of a price change. So let's start with the price change. The first thing what we're going to do is, as in our previous chapter, what we discussed, we try to find out the relationship or the bundle the consumer is selecting between the clothing and the food. So we are using the same example here. So effect of a price change. So what we are assuming here, what we are trying to explain the derivation of a demand curve if the price of one of the product is changing. And what we are saying here, a reduction in the price of food with income and the price of clothing fixed. So income is at the same level, as well as the price of a clothing is not changing. So what we are assuming here, that the price of a food change. Now, how the consumers behave in that respect. The cause the consumer to choose a different market basket. So consumer is going to change the market basket, and the objective is again the same, that the consumer is going to get the maximum satisfaction or utility maximization. So we see in our the graph, which is in the top right corner, so we can see the baskets that maximize utility for various prices of goods. And we see point A when the consumption of food is around 4 units, and then we see that as the price of the food goes down, so we move to the point B where the consumption of the goods increase to 12. And then we see that when the price of a good further go down and the consumption of the goods reach to around 20, and we see this is the point when the price is decreased from $10 from $2 to $1 and then 50 cents. So this way the price is decreasing, and we see that the utility maximization bundle is changing, and in this change the consumer is buying more and more of the good which the price of which is decreasing. So we can see here at this point and at this point and at this point we can see that these are the things, and in with respect to this, we draw the demand curve, and in the demand curve we plot quantity of food on x-axis, the quantity of food on x-axis, and the price of food on y-axis. And we can see that when the price is $2, the consumer is buying only 4 units of food, and when the price go down to $1, the consumer is buying 12, and then if the price further go down to 50 cents, the consumer is buying 20. So we can get a downward sloping demand curve for the food. Now, if one more curve we can draw here, and that one curve is called as a price consumption curve. If we join these points on our curve on our graph, which is on the upper right corner. So if you look at this one, these are the points where the utility is maximum with the available income and the price of the two goods. So as the price is changing, we are getting the different combinations of these two goods. When we join these points, we get a curve. And how we define this price consumption curve? Curve tracing the utility maximization. That's what I said. Combination of two goods as the price of one changes. So individual demand curve, definitely we are talking about the individual demand curve. So curve relating the quantity of goods that a single consumer will buy to its price. Now, two things what we observed from these from this demand curve, what we drive here with the help of utility maximization behavior of the consumer. The level of utility that can be attained changes as we move along the curve. So level of utility is changing. You can see here these indifference curves are at a different level. It means that the utility is changing. And as we see that we are moving on this demand curve, like from this point, the indifference curve is U1. And at this point, the indifference curve, which is higher than the U1, which is U2. And at point of H, the indifference curve is U3. And you know that indifference curve gives us a level of utility at that point. At every point on the demand curve, the consumer is maximizing utility. So with this derivation of a demand curve, it also reflects that the consumer is selecting the combination where his or her utility is maximized. So maximizing utility by satisfying the condition that now what is the condition? Last time we discussed that the marginal rate of substitution, which is the slope of the indifference curve, and the of the food for clothing equals the ratio of the price of food and clothing, and that's the slope of a budget line. So both these slopes are same, and we can see as well on this graph. So like at this point, the U3, which is an indifference curve, and this budget line between the food and clothing are tangent to each other. Tangent means that they have a one common point, and that common point has the same slope. So we observe this, and now we can say that this is the condition fulfilled, that where the utility is maximized. Now the second thing what we're going to do is we again see that how the demand individual demand curves behave or change when the income level change. So we see here in this particular graph on the right side corner an increase in income with the price of all goods fixed. So price is not changing, only income is changing. To alter the choice of the market baskets. So in part 1, the baskets that maximize consumer satisfaction for various incomes, point A, B, and D. So these are the points we see with a different level of incomes. Like for A point where the income is of only $10, B with the income of $20, and D with the income of $30. And we see that as the income is increasing, we are getting a different level of satisfaction with the higher indifference curves. Now what is this reflecting? And when we plot it, a demand curve with the help of this graph, we get a demand curve that is shifting from one point to another point. Now we already know from our chapter number 3 that increase in income is shifting the demand curve. So is shifting the demand curve to the right or decrease to the left, but it's not a movement along the curve. But when the price, in this case, you see that the price change, we move along the curve. So we move from point E to G and H, but here we are shifting the curve from E to G to H. So we have a new demand curves with a higher level. So the shift to the right of the demand curve is in response to the increase in income is shown in part B, and we are. Now again we can get another curve, and we call it as like in our previous analysis or derivation, we can see that we get it a curve which is called as a price consumption curve. Here we have a income consumption curve, and when we join these points, where the utility is maximized with a given level of income, then we get a income consumption curve. So curve tracing the utility maximization combination of two goods as a consumer's income change. For inferior goods, we know the relationship of an inferior good with the income is that as the income increase, the consumption of that particular good decrease if it is an inferior good. So if we trace an income consumption curve for inferior goods, it is going to be an upward sloping. But we can see here that the curve between A and B is upward sloping, and then it starts towards the downward sloping with the B and C onward. This is the income consumption curve. So it means that this product is normal between A and B when the like a hamburger, when the income increase from 10 to 20, hamburger is a normal good, but when the income increase from 20 to 30, then hamburger become a inferior good. So that's the things work. We also can draw a curve, and that curve is called as an Engel curve. Now Engel curves relate the quantity of goods consumed to the income. So normally when you draw a demand curve, what you draw the quantity and the price. On y-axis is a price of the product. But when we want to draw an Engel curve, so what we draw the quantity on x-axis, but income on y-axis, not the price. So if we draw income on x-axis, so we get a curve which is called as an Engel curve. Engel curve for a normal good is upward sloping. As the income is increasing, the quantity of the good that is normal is going to buy more and more. But if it is an inferior good, then it is downward sloping. And we see here that this hamburger, the Engel curve of an hamburger has a quality that during the first increase in the income, it is normal, and after this point, it's going to turn towards the downward sloping, and that's point we can say that this product is going to convert into an inferior good. It is normal good up till this point, and then it becomes an inferior good. So practically, if we look at from our daily life that which products are normal goods and which products are inferior goods, so we can drive Engel curves for a group of consumers. The information is particularly useful if we want to see how consumers spend various among different income groups. So what we did, this is the data from US, and we see here these are the products like expenditure on these products like entertainment, own dwelling means own house, rented dwelling means rented house, and healthcare, food and clothing. And in the top row, there are reported a different income level groups, like a income with a less than 10,000, then between 10 and 20,000, and then 20 and 30,000. So we can report, and we see that as the income is increasing from 10 to 20 in the group of a 20 and 30 and 40, the consumption on entertainment is increasing. So it means entertainment is a normal good. Similarly, if we see on own dwelling, the same happens. The rented dwelling is the only product out of these all 6 products that has a change, that has an Engel curve which change after a point, this point. Like after, when the income is increased from more than 50,000, the consumer starts thinking that it is good to that they have their own house instead of renting a house. So that's why it's going to decrease after this point. And the book is also reflecting the curves, and we see that this green curve or this red curve, both are upward sloping. These are the Engel curves for entertainment and healthcare, but the blue curve is a Engel curve for rented dwelling, and we see that it is changing with the increase in income. So we can see here it's decrease and then it's increase, it's decrease, and then increase, and then decrease. So it's a quite representative of a situation when the income change, the goods become inferior. Now, when we discuss these change in prices or change in income level, one thing would we have to keep that the goods have a relationship like a substitution as well as complement or independent. So what is a substitution good? Two goods are substitutes if an increase in the price of a one good leads to an increase in the quantity demanded of the other goods. So that's a substitution definition in economics. Like if the price of one product increase, the demand for other products increase, it means that this product is substitutable with the other product. Two goods are complement. How they are become a complement? If an increase in the price of a one good, good A, and the demand of the goods B down or decrease, then it is a complement good. Why? Because we have to take together, so we have to use together. The consumer is buying together, using together. So for that reason, their relationship is like this: when the price of A increase, the demand for B down or decrease. The two goods are called as an independent if a change in the price of one good has no effect on the quantity demanded of the other good. So the fact that goods can be complements or substitutes suggests that when studying the effect of a price change in one market, like a food price change or the clothing price change, it may important to look at the consequence in the related market. So if the price of food goes down, then how the food market, and we know that the food market is behaving, if it is a normal good, is going to increase the quantity demanded. But what is an impact on the other good? So we have to look like this. So what we are doing here, we are studying this impact. A fall in the price of a good has two effects. Consumer will tend to buy more of the good that has become cheaper and less of those goods that are relatively more expensive. This response to a change in relative price of a good is called as a substitution effect. We already discussed that. What is a substitution effect? Because one of the good is now cheaper, consumer enjoys an increase in real income. Why? Because now the budget is same, the income level is same, but when the price of a one product goes down, so what is happening? Then your purchasing power increase. Now this purchasing power increase may be cause an increase in the demand for other good as well, or increase in the demand of the same good as well. But these increases in the demand of these both goods are due to income effect. Why? Because the real income is increasing. So the change in demand resulting from this change in real purchase power is called as an income effect. Now what we have to do, we have to study these effects. So the first one is a substitution effect. Substitution effect, change in the consumption of a good associated with the change in its price with the level of utility held. And income effect, so what we have to very careful, like substitution effect, change in the consumption of goods associated with the change in its price with the level of utility held constant. So means that the utility is same, so it means that the consumer is on the same indifference curve, although is buying more of it because the price is decreasing, or less of it because of price is increasing, but the consumer is at the same level, constant level of utility. Income effect, change in consumption of a goods resulting from an increase in purchasing power with relatively price held constant. So price held constant, what is happening? You are buying more of it because, and by this way your utility is increasing. So when we want to see what is the total effect of this change in the price of a one good, we divide these effects into two parts, and we discuss that. So one is called as a substitution effect, the other one is called as an income effect. So let's see in our diagram. So the initial diagram is R, and the curve is R and S. That's an initial curve, and we see that the consumer can buy A at that point, and when the price decrease, what is happening? The budget curve rotates. We see here this one, this blue dotted line. So an increase in the price of good has both an income effect and the substitution effect. The consumer is initially at point A on the budget line RS, as I mentioned, RS, right? This is so when the price of a good falls, consumption increases by F1 to F2. So they buy the consumption of this good, this particular good, food, if the price of a food goes down from F1 to F2. Now the substitution effect is from F1 to E, from F1 to E. Why? Because you see that this is on the same indifference curve, this D point. So that's a substitution effect, because we mention here held constant. And we the other effect, which is from E to F2, is because of a increase in real income, and that jumps the utility from D to B. So for a normal good, food as a normal good, these both effects are working in a same direction. You see arrows in a same direction. And we see that the consumption of the good food is increased from point A to point B. So for a normal good, because the income effect is E2 is positive, so both are positive. But for an inferior good, we see that for an inferior good, because it's an inferior good, so substitution effect is positive. Substitution effect is positive from F1 to E. But income effect, because it's an inferior good, the income effect is negative. He's going to buy less of it. And that is the effect that we see here, this income effect. Now, when this effect works, so what is happening, that the consumer is not buying somewhere here, the consumer is buying there. It means initial substitution effect is this much, and because of the income, it's go down to this. But still, it's a downward sloping demand curve. So if we will see that even the price decrease, the demand is increasing from F1 to F2. So however, the substitution effect exceeds the income effect. The decrease in the price leads to an increase in the quantity of a goods demanded. But there is another type of a good, and we call it as a Giffen good. And in that case, the income effect is bigger than the substitution effect. And for that reason, theoretically we say that the demand curve for a Giffen goods are upward sloping. So goods whose demand curve slopes upward, because the negative income effect is larger than substitution effect. When the good is an inferior good, and when the income effect is larger enough to dominate the substitution effect, the demand curve will upward sloping. The consumer is initially at point A, but after the price of a good falls, moves to B and consumes less food. Because the income effect F2, F1 is larger than the substitution effect F2, the decrease in the price of food leads to a lower quantity of food demanded. We can see from our practical life that when in US, when the government increase gasoline tax is imposed when the government consumer is initially buying 1200 gallons of gasoline at point C. After the tax takes effect, the budget line, because the increase in the price because of the tax, the consumer is buying 900 gallons. But at the same time, the government is also giving rebate to the low income groups. So the consumption increase from 900, but not increase too much. It's only increased just 13.5 more gallons at each. So despite the rebate program, the consumer's gasoline consumption has fallen, as has its level of satisfaction. So the gas is a normal good. So as the price is increasing, so the quantity demanded decreases. So we can see here this one. So this is our first part, and in which we discuss about the derivation of the demand curve with the help of a change in the price of one good or change in the income. And we also focus on two important things. One is the substitution effect and the income effect. So stay tuned for the part 2, 3, and 4. Thank you.